This is David Talbot, GV Wire, here with Fresno Unified Superintendent Michael Hanson. Superintendent Hanson, the news today that you will be stepping down when your term expires or your contract expires next August. So why don't you tell us, why are you leaving now?
So my contract actually is for a number of years. It actually expires in about 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. What I said today was that I intended to fulfill the terms of my contract through the summer of 2017 at this point. And I chose to make that announcement for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've done this work for 12 years, which is pretty significant. It's about 2.5, the average tenure is about 2.5 years for an urban superintendent, so it's 4 to 5 times longer than the average person makes it. But primarily, I've got 3 children, one in college, one senior who I brought as the first grader to town, who's going to graduate from Edison High School, big transition for him. And then the one who was not born when I took the job is a 6th grader going into 7th grade, another transition. So those transition points weighed heavily for us, for my wife and I. And primarily, though, the work of the district is going very well. And I didn't feel like I would be abandoning ship, so to speak. Our 4 board-adopted goals we're making progress each and every day on all of those metrics, which we feel great about. Number 2, our budget situation is strong, robust, and not all urbans, even in California, can say that. Number 3, we work through a lens of equity and access, which helps us target our 90% of our kids living in poverty and 90% of our kids of color, which has helped to drive our progress in those 4 goal areas. And the 4th thing is, even despite some opposition to our bond measure, we passed it with 67%, so it means our building program will continue like it did with Measure Q going forward and dramatically change the face of the community through our schools. And the last one is we now have a culture established of collaboration across the region, throughout town, and across the region, across the state and the nation, whether it's the core districts, whether it's with the city and the mayor's office, whether it's with other folks who are at offices at the county office or the county office of education, the housing authority, so on and so forth. There are a number of folks that we're doing a number of things with that I think are going to they continue to prove very fruitful, including our health partners. So it feels like a very natural time to think about making a move. So that's why I said I would at this point.
It sounds like you just want to go out on top.
Going out on top is not necessarily, well, it's a good time to go, I think, if I'm going to go, and that's why I've considered it as such. We're in a good space. I think we're in a good space, and there are people who can do the work, who are in the district, and they don't need me in the same way that they may have even 3, 5, or 6 years ago, or even 2 years ago. So, and I'm 51, and there's a couple of other big things I would like to do before I'm done, and they're all going to involve youth, and I just don't know what they're going to be yet.
Well, there are a couple of high-profile education jobs available. The Oakland superintendent position is available. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Actually, no. I actually advised a couple of candidates who are interviewing for that job today on how to approach it, no, I don't see myself jumping from Fresno Unified to another superintendency immediately. I don't rule out doing another superintendency at all, but as the winter break comes up on the 16th, Julie and I, my wife, will spend some time really thinking through what it is that we think we want to do in the next probably 5 to 7 years to decade, and really start planning for years beyond our 50s.
So you don't have an immediate plan after you're done with Fresno Unified?
No, not at all.
Now, there may be some critics. You've had your detractors, even though you've talked about all the positive things you've done. Does the possibility of a new school board and the future evaluations have any bearing on your decision?
None. I've had, let me think, every 2 years when we've had board elections, I've had a new board, if I'm not mistaken. So this will be my 5th new board. Each time we've worked it through, and it's become a very positive thing, probably a 6-1 board, 7-0, 6-1 board, 5-2 board on big major issues. I've had 13 positive evaluations in a row. I have no reason to believe that that wouldn't continue because the work is so solid and it speaks for itself. So that doesn't creep into my mind in the least.
Are you hoping that the FBI investigation is resolved by the time you leave next year?
In my estimation, it has. I mean, from where I sit, the only person who talks about it is one of my board members for the most part. And when we were contacted, I know 2 board members had their attorneys turn over information, and that's all I know about that. I do know that the rest of the board and the staff, all en masse, turned over all the electronics and email and everything that we needed to do en masse immediately at a board meeting, and we've not heard boo one. We haven't heard boo since. As far as I'm concerned, when I don't hear anything for well over a year and a half, I consider the matter closed from my end. I don't think there's anything to come of it, and I've heard that it's actually all but finished. So I don't worry about that at all. It's not been anything that's ever even really crossed my mind as I do my work.
2 new board members will be sworn in. What advice would you have for the new board members?
Oh, I think my advice is that anytime we have new board members, it's a new team. There's an 8-person governance team. I'm the minor player in the governance team. I'm there to work in support of the board. I think working together matters. I think when we're elected by trustee area, but we're governing the entire school district, it's a big deal. The 3 biggest things that the board do year in and year out is they hire a superintendent, they evaluate a superintendent, and they adopt a budget, a big policy document. So I would say ask staff questions, be inquisitive, and get to know the staff and get to know the programs. And the best way to do that is to call us up and figure out when we can meet and talk to you about some really complicated issues. It's hard to get all that done in a gavelled period of time in a board meeting, but I think we'll be best served if we continue to orient them to really complicated issues that exist in a lot of departments. But I think it comes down to a matter of teamwork and focusing on kids.
Now, this board and this community is going to have to look for another superintendent, first time in 12 years. So what should the community be looking for in a new superintendent for Fresno Unified?
Well, I ultimately that's the board's decision, but from where I sit, someone who's got some urgency around serving all students, someone who's willing to make hard calls in pursuit of serving all students, someone who is making sure that the money is invested, or the recommendations to invest the significant resources we get are going to the right places, and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure and make certain that we're moving kids on all of those big, significant 4 goals of the district. It's an awesome job, and it's a complicated job and difficult job, but it's one I wouldn't trade for the world. And I think they need to look for someone who really has a fire in the belly for advocacy for youth, because as I say frequently, we work. The superintendent works, the teachers work, the principals work in the intersection between race and social class. And in that intersection of race and social class, there's a great deal of tension. And what it really comes down to is who gets what. And I think 2 good rules of thumb is for everybody to pay attention to is asking the question, who benefits from this decision? Really deeply, who benefits from this decision? And then follow the money.
Plan on staying in Fresno?
Do not know that yet. It'll all depend upon what comes next in life for us.